My mother-in-law addressed me with harsh words. People like you, without a job and with poor education, are not needed in this house. Then she poured hot water on me. I screamed in pain. It's hot. Please stop. I couldn't believe what was happening. Her behavior shocked me. Pouring boiling water on someone is a horrible act, regardless of the reason. Fortunately, I wasn't burned, but it could have ended much worse. I was in shock. How could my mother-in-law do this to me? It was even harder to realize that her words didn't correspond to the truth. The one without a job wasn't me, it was my husband, Jack. He had lost his job, and I was working hard to support the family. Yet there I was listening to accusations and insults. Anger welled up inside me, and I felt I had reached my limit. I couldn't tolerate her behavior any longer. If that's how you feel about me, I'll leave. You win, I told her. My mother-in-law didn't seem upset at all. Instead, she looked pleased and replied, "Finally, you're leaving. This makes my life easier." Her cold reaction clearly showed that she didn't regret her actions. I realized I didn't want to stay in such a toxic environment. Without wasting time, I packed my things and left. I returned to my parents' home, where I knew I would be treated with kindness, something my mother-in-law didn't know. I wasn't helpless at all. In fact, I was the one keeping her house afloat financially after Jack lost his job. I started trading stocks and was making around $50,000 a month. I didn't need to rely on her or anyone else to survive. Even if she came to me for financial help later, I decided I wouldn't assist her. She had treated me so badly that she didn't deserve my kindness. She would have to live with the consequences of her actions. Jack and I had been married for about 3 years. We met in university, where we both studied economics. After graduation, we got jobs in different financial companies. Despite our busy schedules, we maintained our relationship for many years. A few years later, Jack proposed to me. "Angela, I will make you happy. Please marry me," he said. I believed him and thought I would have a happy life with him, but things turned out differently than I imagined. Looking back now, I'm glad I found the strength to leave. Sometimes, leaving a bad situation is the best thing you can do for yourself. When Jack proposed, I happily said yes. We decided to get married and thought we could build a happy life together. I was thrilled about the idea of creating our own family and living as a married couple. But soon after that, Jack said something unexpected. "Hey Angela," he began, "could you quit your job and move in with me at my mom's house?" I was surprised. "I don't mind quitting my job, but we're newlyweds. I'd like for us to live together." "I understand," he said, "but I'm worried about leaving Mom alone." Jack's father had died when he was in high school, and since then he had lived with his mom. I understood his feelings and agreed, "Okay, I'll live with you and your mom." 3 weeks later, we moved into Jack's family home. At first, my mother-in-law seemed happy to have Jack back. She greeted us with a smile, but as soon as she looked at me, her expression changed. The smile disappeared, and she muttered something under her breath that I didn't catch. It seemed like she said, "You shouldn't have come here." I tried to ignore it and smiled, but deep down I was worried about living with her. Nevertheless, the first day passed without any serious problems. The next morning, I was awakened by my mother-in-law's shout, "Are you still sleeping? Get up and make breakfast." I looked at the clock. It was only 5:00 am, still dark outside. I couldn't believe she wanted breakfast so early. Confused, I sat up and asked, "Why so early?" "Don't lie around doing nothing just because you're not working," she scolded me. I wasn't fully awake yet, but I didn't want to argue, so I got up and started preparing breakfast. As I cooked, she continued to criticize me. "Hurry up. Why are you so slow?" she snapped. I felt stressed and rushed, but I kept going. Finally, after 20 minutes, breakfast was ready. "I'm sorry to keep you waiting," I said politely. "Finally done. Can't you be any faster?" she complained again. Her sharp words stung, but I stayed silent. I realized this was just the beginning of what life with her would be like. Sitting down for breakfast, I couldn't shake off the anxiety. Living with my mother-in-law turned out to be much harder than I expected. I wanted to tell her that it was impossible to cook any faster, but I smiled and tried to let it go. However, she didn't stop complaining. "What is this? The soup is too salty," she said, looking at me. "I don't think it's that salty," I replied carefully. "What did you say? Are you implying there's something wrong with my taste? Trying to kill me by serving such salty food?" She barked. Her words shocked me. I had never meant anything like that. Why was she accusing me and being so harsh? Her behavior was confusing and hurtful. Gathering my courage, I asked mother-in-law, "Why are you so strict with me?" "What are you talking about? I'm not strict with you," she reacted. "Are you trying to make me look bad?" "No, that's not what I meant," I stammered, feeling overwhelmed by her attitude. "Come on, wash the dishes, and then do the laundry," she ordered. There's no time to rest. From that day on, my mother-in-law continued to treat me harshly. Every day she criticized me for everything. It was exhausting, and I was at my wit's end. One night I decided to talk to Jack. "Jack, I need to talk to you. Your mom says hurtful things to me every day, and I'm struggling. Could you ask her not to talk to me like that?" I expected Jack to comfort me or at least respond, but he remained silent. His silence upset me even more. "Jack, are you listening to me?" I asked again, irritated. Then I noticed something strange. He looked pale, as if he wanted to say something but didn't know how. "What happened? Is something wrong?" I asked it, concerned. Jack hesitated before speaking. "Actually, I got fired from my job." I was shocked. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No," he said quietly. "The company laid off many employees due to a drop in profits, and I lost my job." I couldn't believe my ears. "So you're unemployed now?" I asked, trying to grasp the news. "Yes," he said. "Starting tomorrow, I have no job." I sat in silence, at a loss for words. My world suddenly became even heavier. Receiving the notification that I would lose my job in a month, I knew I had little time. Fortunately, I used the knowledge I gained from the securities company to trade stocks. It was tough at first, but I improved over time and eventually started making around $50,000 a month. Thanks to this, we didn't face financial difficulties. I focused on supporting Jack and tried to forget about my mother-in-law's daily criticisms. Her harsh treatment continued, but I endured it for his sake. A month passed and Jack officially became unemployed. At first, he made some efforts to find a new job, but over time, he stayed home more often, making excuses for not applying. "Shouldn't you take your job search more seriously?" I suggested gently one day. "I am looking," he replied, "but it's hard to find a company that suits me." It seemed like he wasn't taking it seriously, but I stayed silent and continued to support the household financially. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law's attitude toward me worsened. She constantly criticized me, and I grew more and more tired. At first, I thought I had to endure her behavior because Jack was unemployed. But over time, I stopped thinking that way. I began to feel empty and unhappy every day. One morning, Jack left the house earlier than usual. It was unusual, and I hoped he was finally taking his job search seriously. After he left, I started my daily chores. As I cleaned, my mother-in-law sat on the couch in the living room sipping coffee. "Clean properly, don't miss a single spot," she said sharply. I ignored her remark and continued cleaning. Suddenly, she threw a tantrum and started screaming, "How dare you ignore me? You're just a daughter-in-law. You don't even have a proper job," she screamed louder and louder. I tried to stay calm and kept cleaning, but her anger intensified. She jumped up and shouted at me, "Useless, jobless people like you don't deserve to be here. Get out." Before I could respond, she grabbed a pot of hot water she had prepared for coffee and poured it on me. The hot water scalded my skin. "It's hot. Please stop," I screamed, shocked and in pain. This was the breaking point. I realized I couldn't live in such a toxic environment any longer. Her behavior was cruel and unacceptable. Something had to change. I screamed without thinking when my mother-in-law poured hot water on me. Fortunately, the water wasn't boiling, so I wasn't burned. But it could have been a terrible accident. Nevertheless, I was shocked by her actions. My mother-in-law, Carlin, seemed unbothered. Instead, she smirked and said, "I've been saying this all along. If you don't work, you don't belong here." Her words hurt, but I was so tired of her behavior that I decided not to argue. I took a deep breath and said, "Fine, I'll leave." "Good," she replied. I waited thinking Jack would call or message to check on me, but he didn't. Days turned into weeks and still there was no word from him. I felt a bit lonely but decided not to contact him first. If he cared, he would reach out to me. A month passed and I still hadn't heard from Jack. During that time, my feelings for him began to fade. I filed for divorce. It seemed he no longer cared about me or our marriage. One early morning, there was a knock at the door of my parents' house. I checked the monitor and was shocked to see Jack and my mother-in-law standing outside. What are they doing here after all this time? I thought. Yes, what do you want? I asked through the intercom. My mother-in-law shouted, "I forgive you. Come back home." I was stunned. Forgive me for what? I didn't do anything. Her words made no sense. I calmly but firmly replied, "Thank you for saying that. But I don't think I need your forgiveness." Then I ended the intercom call, but they didn't leave. Instead, my mother-in-law started banging on the door and shouting, "Don't hang up. Let us in. Come back with us." Worried that their shouting and noise might disturb the neighbors, I reluctantly opened the door and let them in. I led them to the living room and offered them a seat. Once they were seated, I asked, "Why are you here? What's going on?" I couldn't understand why they had come now. My mother-in-law had insisted that I leave, and now she was telling me to come back. Her behavior made no sense. "You told me to leave, I can't just come back," I said firmly, still confused and annoyed by the situation. I stood my ground and made it clear to my mother-in-law how I felt. She became angry and accused me, insisting that she had forgiven me and demanding that I return to live in her house. She even said she was willing to let someone like me, jobless and uneducated, stay there. I couldn't hold back any longer. "It's not me who's jobless, it's your son Jack. And if I come back, you'll mistreat me every day," I snapped. Jack looked shocked when I said that. He finally confessed the truth. He had been fired from the company. This revelation led to a flood of apologies and excuses from Jack. He tried to explain that he had been relying on my income to keep us afloat financially. However, my mother-in-law was furious. She found out about Jack's unemployment and started openly berating him. When my mother-in-law again suggested that I return to live with them, I firmly refused. "No, I'm not coming back," I said. Returning to that house after everything they had put me through was impossible. Then the situation escalated. I mentioned how my mother-in-law had poured boiling water on me. Jack's face paled. "She did that to you?" he asked in horror. "Yes," I said. "Ask her yourself." Jack turned to his mother. "Why did you do that to her?" She admitted, "Because she was ignoring me. That's why I did it." Her excuse infuriated me even more, and it led to a heated argument between Jack and his mother. Their shouting became unbearable, so I intervened and said, "Have this argument at your own home. You're in someone else's house and shouting too loudly." Hearing my words, they calmed down a bit. Their bold and pushy behavior softened, and they began begging me to return, promising not to treat me badly anymore. Jack said he would find a job, and my mother-in-law promised not to cause any more problems, but I didn't believe them. Their promises were empty. I knew better than to trust them after everything I had been through. I honestly told them that their words meant nothing to me. I knew they would take advantage of me again if I returned. Their silence confirmed my suspicions. Without saying another word, I left the living room and went to my bedroom, leaving them to think about their actions. About 6 minutes later, I returned to the living room. They were still sitting in the same place, heads bowed, saying nothing. Annoyed by their silence, I asked, "How long are you going to sit here quietly? I don't care anymore." Instead of answering, Jack sighed deeply. He looked surprised when I handed him a piece of paper. It was a pre-filled divorce form with my signature already on it. His face expressed confusion as he looked at the document. "This is a divorce form," I said bluntly. "Enough is enough. I can't stay married to someone who doesn't look for a job and didn't even contact me after I left." Jack looked devastated. "Wait please, this is too sudden," he said, clearly distressed. His reaction annoyed me. He seemed not to understand that his actions or lack thereof had led to this. He had ignored me when I needed support and left me to fend for myself. I had already made up my mind. "I'm filing for divorce," I said firmly. "Whatever you say, I'm divorcing you." Jack still couldn't believe it. "Isn't divorce too harsh?" he asked. "No, it's not harsh," I replied coldly. "It's your fault." I turned to his mother with the same cold tone. She was just as guilty of mistreating me. She said nothing, but her face expressed resignation. In the end, Jack signed the divorce form, although he warned me, "Don't regret this later." But I felt relieved. The one who might regret it is him. "I'm sure about this," I said confidently. "I'll file for divorce myself. I don't need any compensation. Just leave me alone and go home." With that, our marriage was officially over. It might have seemed harsh, but it was necessary to free myself from my mother-in-law's harassment and Jack's irresponsibility. 3 weeks later, while relaxing at my parents' house, I received a call from my former mother-in-law. She sounded distressed. "The electricity and gas have been cut off," she said. "Did you do something?" I calmly explained, "I stopped paying for your and Jack's living expenses. That's why." Her tone changed, and she tried to ask me for help. It was clear she hoped I would intervene, given that we were no longer together and not living in the same house. Her request seemed unreasonable. I said no and suggested she seek help from Jack. After all, he had promised to find a job and support her. She didn't understand why I refused and begged me for help, trying to make me feel guilty by saying I was still her former daughter-in-law. I remained firm in my decision, ended the call, and blocked her number. After that, I decided to cut all ties with my former mother-in-law, who constantly criticized me, and with Jack, who was always unreliable. Once I made these changes, life at my parents' house became much more peaceful. I began to focus on myself and rebuild my life. A few months later, during a vacation, while checking stock charts, I received a message from Jack. He apologized for everything and admitted that he had relied on me too much in the past. He also mentioned that he had recently found a job at a factory. Although he apologized, I had no interest in reconciling with him or anyone from that part of my life. He mentioned that his mother was still treating him poorly and asked if I would return. Reading his message, I realized there was no chance of reconciliation. I blocked his number as well. About 5 months after the divorce, a friend introduced me to a new man. He was reliable, kind, and treated me well. Although he was older than me, we got along well. We didn't rush into marriage plans but were together. I decided to focus on the present and let go of the painful memories from the past.